Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem video. This is a postmortem of my Blitz chess game number 163. I was black here. My opponent kicked off with e4, and I play e5 going into the classical lines. e4, e5. Here, let's create a little sound. He plays knight f3. I play not that much sound. Knight c6. There we go. And d4, the Scotch game. So you can see that the top moves here are bishop b5, the Spanish game, bishop c4, the Italian game. I've talked some about those in my Chess Basics series. d4, the Scotch game, and knight c3, which is called the four knights, although there's only three knights so far, but usually black continues with knight f6, and then it'll be four knights. Anyway, d4 is the Scotch game, and taking is an usual move here. And knight takes. And then there's two main choices here. There's a very tricky line with knight f6. I'll show you that sometime. But the line I play is bishop c5. It's a little bit simpler. And the one trick you need to know here is if he takes, you don't take back right away, but you play here with the queen, threatening checkmate. So that's a threat that really needs to be respected. He can move the queen to d2 or f3. Say queen d2, and then you can grab over here with the queen if you want to avoid messing up your pawns. What did I do? Oh, I went into a rare line, queen d2. And then, that's funny, I always took back with the queen. It says d takes c6. I don't like d takes c6. I don't see any reason to move that pawn away from the center. But anyway, yeah, you can play d takes c6 there if you want to. Okay, but it's just a trick to keep in mind. So after he plays bishop e3, I just retreat the bishop down to b6. Queen f6 is still a move here apparently, but I don't see the advantage in bringing the queen out that early, honestly. So and this leads to perfectly playable positions, and after knight c6, knight takes c6 here, we're out of the opening book. It's better not to take. It's better just to continue developing with knight c3 here. Okay, but my opponent took. And, I looked at this position earlier with the chess engine, looked at the game earlier with the chess engine, but I'm going to leave the engine off while I do the commentary so I can do tactical quizzes here. So, but I'll report that the engine thought these exchanges favored black and now gives black a slight edge here. But after bishop d3, I'm tempted to play the move d5, maybe a little over-ambitious. The engine prefers the moves knight f6 or d6. So, but anyway, I try to get a pawn in the center. And this is okay. It's about even, I guess. And castles. Just this next move, bishop e6, is a definite mistake. I should play knight e7 first. The thing is, he's got this check. So I'll show you. This happened in the game. Bishop to e6, and then bishop b5 check, and I can't really block the check. Pawn's not protected here, and if I bring the bishop back, then he can grab my pawn, grab my pawn on d5, and just make life miserable for me generally. He could also deliver this check here first, and so you don't want to play that move. You want to play king f8, and I looked at it, and actually the engine rates that as the best move, and it gives a slight edge to white in this position, but not an overwhelming edge, just sort of a typical opening advantage. So the game continues from here. I just have a few problems to work out in my development, but I have, in the long run, potentially a good game with more center influence with these pawns. Okay, knight c3, queen d6, these are all pretty decent moves. Just developing knight b5, the queen goes back. And right here, when my opponent plays the move b3, I was thinking, well, my position would be okay except for my king. And so I'm going to have to play the move g6 and king g7. And so when I play g6, this knight is undefended for a second. So the thing is, white can slow down my plan by playing the move queen f3. And that's really the best move for white in this position. So now I have to find some other way of getting my rooks connected, which will be a bit slower. Maybe I should move my knight out of the way first. It's not clear. Anyway, that's the way that white can cause the most trouble for black. So after the move b3, which he played, we're back to a position where black is better again, even or slightly better, I guess is the way to put it. C4, and after C4, I go in for the exchange here. The engine recommends just playing King G7 and letting white take. I will still have these two pawns over here, which are mobile and give me a good game. So, but I took. He takes with the bishop, and then after thinking for a while, I didn't want to allow him to take on e6 and possibly split up my pawn structure, so I decided to go for this line. Queen takes, knight takes, and then he takes back here. Notice that he doesn't have time to take on c7, because even though that's hitting the rook can go somewhere like here, hitting the knight, and the knight moves, and then I can save my bishop. So I'll be a piece up in a line like that. So he really has to take the bishop back, which he does. And then I can play c6, kick his knight. d4. And I wanted to defend my c-pawn, didn't want to give it up. He plays rook f to d1. And I went knight e5, hitting his pawn over here. And he didn't defend it. He played a4 instead. And I thought I was a clear pawn up at this point, but I missed something. So let's get to the critical position here. I take the pawn. He harasses my knight, and I retreat to a5. And now he just played the move f3. But the move f3 is not the best move in this position. And so this is your first tactical quiz. If you're black, what would you play here? Okay, I'm going to give the answer away. The chess engine recommends the move rook a to b1. And now this pawn is under attack, and the only piece that can defend it is the rook, which is already busy defending the c-pawn. So in fact, this means I wasn't really winning a pawn at all. There's no way for me to hold on to my pawn, and white is just getting his pawn back with the best play there. So I wasn't quite as well off as I thought I was. So that's the way to play this. Okay, f3 was played. I play king g7, and he plays king f2. And now there's your second tactical quiz. It's black's turn to move, and black can just win the game pretty much on the spot here. So take a look at it. Pretty simple tactic. Okay, pause the video if you want more time. I'm going to give the answer away. The answer is c5. So what are the elements of this tactic? Let's back up. The first element is to notice this is a fork. The knight can go there and fork the two rooks. And the second point to notice is that the knight is defending that square. So the knight is the only reason why you can't play that fork. And so all you have to do is kick the knight with the move c5. And he either has to give up the knight or give up the fork. So the knight, wants to go somewhere where it can attack something, but it doesn't have any great moves. If you look here, these are covered, that's covered. Say it goes here. Then you just play this move, and you're winning the exchange. So that's the way to play this position. I didn't spot that idea, although I was kind of thinking about it. I played something similar. Now, you might be wondering, ever since the knight moved to a5, say after a5 he played f3, you might wonder why I can't play c5 in this position. So that's a little quiz for you. Why doesn't c5 work here? Okay, I'm going to give the answer away. If I played c5 here, he could just play rook to b1 anyway, because I can't take the pawn. It's pinned. So c5 is not a threat. It's not a threat until, let's go forward in the game. He played king f2, and no, okay, so after knight a5, he played f3. I played king g7, he played king f2, and now c5 is a threat because the rooks are defending each other. So I missed this c5 idea, and I played rook h to d8, attacking his knight. And now if the knight moves away, I do have the fork, so he's forced to defend the knight with rook d1. And then I take advantage of the fork this way. I take the knight off, and then I fork the two rooks. So I just get the material off the board and go into a rook and pawn endgame, which I thought was winning Turns out it's not so simple, so he played well here. Rook takes, so I start getting my king active. So with best play, I bet white could hold this position. The chess engine rates this as, fractionally better for black. Not a whole pawn up, but a third or 4/10 of a pawn, something along those lines. And usually that means that it's not a winning edge, and usually that means that white can hold the position. So a logical outcome from here would be a draw, which means that I shouldn't have played, if we back up, I shouldn't have played this tactic, even though it was cute. I should have kept the force on until I had a way to go into a ending that I was convinced was won. Of course, in a real game, in a slow game, you have more time to calculate things like that. But the way it proceeds, there's one more mistake in the game which kind of seals it. King goes there, rook to c7, king c4, and f4, f5. And now here's the final, the real losing move is this move, f4. And the reason this is a losing move is that it takes away all the squares from this rook. The rook has nowhere to go right to left. My pawn is guarding that square, and his pawn that he just moved to f5 is blocking the rook's escape over here. So the rook is very restricted in its movements, and I can play the move rook d7, and that just forces an exchange. And now as a pawn endgame, that's clearly a winning pawn endgame. So the extra pawn will just take care of things. So he tries to slow down the advance of the pawns, but basically there's no way to do it. I just waste time with my king, and he moves his pawns, and then when I get the chance, I lock up this structure. And then I start pushing my pawn forward, just making sure that he can't ever get active. The one thing you have to worry about, so here, let's just show a few more moves. He went here, I go here, and then he has to go back. He went to d3, and then I could start marching my pawn forward. Yeah, he went to c3. I'll show you up to the end of the game. And then he steps back to d2. I step forward, and he's just going to lose here. I can come over, for example, like this. You can step back. I can just come over and grab this pawn. I don't even have to march this one all the way down. If he ever comes over here, then I can come this way and queen. So when I go to this square, he can't go anywhere that attacks my pawn. So I can just grab his pawn for free, come back and defend this one. Now I've got two pawns. And there are other ways to win, but that's a simple technique, is you get this pawn up far enough and you can win the other pawn over here. And if there's only a single pawn over here, you just advance it to some point, and then you come over here and gobble up these pawns. So it's all easily winning. The only thing I was going to back up, the only thing you have to be a little bit careful of, and the reason why I was making sure there were no tempos over here, is if we're in this position and it's white's turn to move. Here, so let's back up. So, yeah, I played check, he goes there. If I were to waste a move, how could I waste a move? Let's say he went here. Oh, it's my turn. Let's back up. Let's say he went back. I go forward. He goes sideways. I go here. And he goes here. Now it's my turn to move. And I can't push this pawn because he can just take it. Can't push these pawns. So I'm basically out of move, so I have to move my king. So I move my king to the side, and he can step in here. And now it's a race. And it's not clear to me who's going to win this race. I start pushing. Yeah. If I start pushing immediately, he can take that pawn, and we're into a drawn situation. So I have to go forward with my king. Now he takes my pawn, and now the pawns start racing. And I queen, but he queens too. And unless there's some trick with the check, It's my turn. Oh, he checked. He queened with check. Yeah, so there's no trick, and in fact, this is pretty surely drawn. I don't think he can use his queen, but I do have to be careful not to lose my pawns over there. So, so anyway, you do have to be careful about allowing your opponent's king to invade. So that's why, you know, I got rid of all the tempo moves over here, and I waited till his king was, where my king was in a position to go to c6 at the right time. So before playing the move c5. So if he had gone back to one of these squares on the third row, then I could move my king forward. So if he goes here, this is what happened in the game, then I go here and force him back. And then from then on, wherever he goes, let's cancel that. Wherever he goes, it's an easy win from this point forward. So hope you enjoyed that little bit of endgame lesson there. And if you have any comments, leave them in the section below, and I'll see you again later. Bye.